So awesome being
You
able to
guys
do
like how
this.
she is trying to escape this conversation without
I'm like,
me
okay, so we're
asking some
done.
ending
We're done.
questions.
Bye.
I have questions for you.
This is the place to ask questions. This is the place to take notes. This is the place to learn strategy. Welcome to the Visible Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Lewis, and this is the podcast you'll love listening to week after week. After a history in Hollywood, I know what it takes to get visible. And as an entrepreneur, you don't have to keep feeling frustrated and trapped, not able to get yourself out there. Myself, my guests, and even my family are here to lift you up, guide you, and give you powerful ideas so that you can get your unique voice into the online space. Ready? Let's do it.
And action.
Hey there, fellow achievers. This is Jessica Rodriguez here with thedaydreamachiever.com
And I'm Michelle Lewis here with the Visible Entrepreneur Podcast. Woo-hoo!
So in case you guys haven't noticed, we are doing a little experiment here. We're going to have some fun and essentially record 2 podcasts at one time, talking about visibility, our experience throughout this entire entrepreneur journey, and really just getting to the heart of what it means to get out there and get visible in your own business.
Absolutely. We are doing what is called a crossover episode. You know, when like Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder had it where Olivia Pope was coming over. That's what we're doing just because we both are visibility experts and we are so excited to share with you little bits of our knowledge to combine it to give you a super actionable episode. So let's dig into it.
Yes. So first thing I just have to say that the fact that you referenced those 2 shows, we just became best friends. Yes. I'm like, I see where she's going. I love this.
Right?
So how about we go ahead and start with sharing our journeys. So, you know,
Beautiful.
The entrepreneur space is so different of how we get into this, how we get started. So tell us a little bit about your start here.
Awesome. Well, for Jessica's listeners, my name is Michelle Lewis. My listeners hopefully know that already. My background is in television and film. That's where I got started. So I grew up going to movie sets and I got into television myself for a couple of years. It definitely has my heart and soul. I literally live across the street from Warner Brothers, so very much a Hollywood gal. But what I found was that there wasn't the flexibility and freedom that I wanted. And everything that I wanted to create had to go through some kind of an approval process, right? So I decided that I didn't want to work 16-hour days anymore, and I stepped away and found the online space. So I've been able to utilize all of that knowledge in this world, which is so beautiful because people have so many gorgeous talents that need to be seen, but they struggle with how to get their message out there. So in a similar vein, Jessica, share with us your story and let us know how you got to this place.
Yes, so this has been one fun-filled past 6 years, I will tell you that. For me, I actually come from an advertising background, and originally what had happened is I was in this place where I was working 4 jobs at the time because college loans are real. And what started to happen is I felt like I didn't have control of a lot of things in my life, but maybe I could control just my health and wellness. So I was the only person I knew that was even into this. So I decided to make this Facebook fan page at the time and share my journey of maybe I can connect with other people and we can inspire each other and just really keep me accountable, publicly accountable. And oddly enough, I was getting visible publicly in a way that I was saying, oh, this is me hiding from my friends and family. Like, okay, what I was doing. So they wouldn't know, but the rest of the world would know, and that was okay.
Right.
And I wound up creating a page that by the time I was done that business was about 25,000 people and this community of people who were really into healthy living. And I was approached by somebody who said, you know, you can make money doing this online. I'm like, no way.
What?
Like, people make money online. I'm like sharing my dish. Like, who cares about this, right? Like, this is insane. So I kind of fell into the business by accident. And within that first year, I had replaced all of my incomes, came home. We then started a social media management company because we were getting fitness professionals that were asking, hey, can you run our stuff the same way you ran yours? And then eventually we phased those out. So I had hit the pure entrepreneurial burnout where I essentially replaced all the time I was spending on these jobs with my business. And I was essentially working a lot harder than I needed to. And I started to create this brand, the Daydream Achiever brand, of first for me, like, let me achieve the real dream, like to be able to live out my passion without it consuming my life, to be able to have offers that people loved, for me to show up. And I know you believe the same thing, like in this genuine way of like, this is me and who you are is enough. And we can share that and we can make a lot of money doing it as well. But that impact we can have, like that ripple effect, really matters. So I started to build this business back in 2015. And since then, it has really been focused around not just getting, creating offers in your business, but how can we bring people to those offers? How do we show them that you're different than every other coach, strategist, author, speaker that's out there?
Right. Absolutely. Well, I love that. And it seems like we both have come from places of too many hours, not enough recognition, not really feeling like we were living a purpose, into moving into the online space, working way too hard, then taking a step back and figuring out how we could actually help people strategically grow, but authentically in a way where they're actually serving their audience. So I love that.
Yes. So something I would love to ask you is, we know that visibility can be almost like a buzzword, right? Online, like it can be thrown around all over.
It wasn't when I first got started.
Back in my day.
Back in the day.
And I think there's so many misconceptions that happen of what it really takes to be visible. So some things I see on my end is the fact that you have to be everywhere. Like you personally need to be on all the social platforms or else you ain't doing nothing. You're not really visible. This doesn't matter. What are some things that either talk about that topic or some other things that you've kind of seen?
Well, if you'll notice behind me, my board says big offering. I was just talking to my mastermind about this the other day because you can feel so lost feeling like you have to be everywhere. And that's the biggest misconception, is that to be visible, you have to be on every single social media platform all the time. And the problem is a lot of people start with this strategy and it's like throwing spaghetti against a wall, and they don't focus on making one of them excellent before bridging on to the next one. And the other problem is they start with social media instead of really sculpting their client experience and going from, free offer to a little bit higher offer to bigger offer, and up we go. So a lot of people come to me and they want to get visible, but they have no kind of a funnel, no offering, no press kit, nothing together. So I think there's this pressure when people start joining Facebook groups and getting in the online space where they feel like they need to be at, Marie Forleo's level tomorrow. And unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. So what I specialize in is helping people get the systems in place, get the branding in place. I can teach you video and live streaming all day long, but if it's not done in a sustainable strategy, you'll push for a month, then you'll burn out, and then you'll quit. And I think this is why so many online businesses fail within their first 2 years. What do you think?
Yeah. And you know what? I actually have a big belief about that too when it comes to things like Facebook ads, where people will throw this money because they're like, I need to be seen, I need to attract these people, but they either aren't super clear on who they need to attract in the first place or owning that fully yet, or they do that just to maybe give them a freebie and there's nothing after that. So how do we make that profitable if there are no offers or anything to sell that's been already tested organically?
Yeah. Well, and the biggest mistake, I think, is that we are taught you need to have Facebook ads and you need to target the United States, Canada, Australia, Great Britain. You need to target 18 to 34, I think. And that's the only way that you're going to be successful. So now that specific demographic is so flooded that you cannot stand out with your Facebook ads. So I think it's very interesting what's been happening. And I was talking to, I don't know if you know Bailey Richard, who teaches the Infopreneur Summit every year, but she's traveling all over the world this year. And she also has dealt with burnout. So that's why she's trying to get more balance. But we were talking about this pendulum swing where it's gone from paying for ads and all of that, but right now it's starting to kind of come back to more organic reach, more organic engagement. Twitter, you can't recycle your posts anymore. So it is coming into much more of an authentic visibility strategy, which is really interesting.
Yes. And you know what? I have to share a story on this because when the first about 2.5, I would say, years everything was built primarily organically. And that was because like Facebook ads were still even new at that point. And it was just what I did. And a lot of it was sharing my story, sharing that I was this imperfect person, just trying to better myself. And as I started to get quote unquote bigger in business or making more money, I started to implement these tools, and it was, okay, now I can use Me Egger and I could cycle through all my things and I could do this and I could do this. And what I started to realize, this actually happened probably midway last year, is I started to think like, what got me to this place at the beginning? And am I still doing those activities? Like the things that really did have the most impact. And I realized why I'm totally about, your team and outsourcing and, helping in your business in that way.
Sure.
At the same time, when, you know what, like I've really slacked off on social media, and that was always my joy. Like I really love connecting with people.
Yeah.
So I cut off, any of the subscriptions. I was like, we can either show up and post consistently or we don't need to be here. Like that's pretty much the rule, right?
Yeah.
It was so funny because before then I would say things like, oh, Instagram these days, it's like, it's all bots, it's all dead. And then I started actually, let me just like be a human and like have fun like I used to have back in the day. And now I'm like, this is my favorite place to hang out. Everybody's so cool. It's like, what just happened? And it's like, go back to that. Like organic is still there, but it's a decision that you're making to do that.
Well, I think this is something that we really saw in the online space in 2017 was hire a team. All of the hire entrepreneurs were trying to push hiring a team of people who hadn't necessarily even started making money yet. So I think you're hitting on something really key, that by the time you get to the point where you can start outsourcing, you've been building for a year to 2 years. And I think that's the misconception, is people feel like they're doing something wrong and that they're having to play catch up to compare with everybody else, and they immediately put themselves into that failure mentality because they're signing on to Facebook and Instagram all day and seeing other people's success and assuming that it happened within 3 months,
Yes. And I mean, there's so many, and something I even compare myself to, and I use this as an example the other day when I was talking to a friend, was like, for example, she mentioned that sometimes she compares like my website and certain graphics and such I do, and goes, oh, I wish I could do things like that. And I go, well, I took on $70,000 worth of loans as a graphic design major. I hope I know how to do some of that, right? Because you're comparing the wrong thing, like the wrong background. And I go, that's the same way where if I go, and I can use Instagram as an example, and I go on an account that has beautiful photos of that person and they just look amazing and everything's stylized, then I learn that, hey, their background is a photographer or they're still doing photography. I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like they're in their skill set and that's something they love to do and it's shining out from there. So how can I do that in my own way and just totally appreciate whatever my skills are?
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the huge keys that you've hit on. And it's something that I like to showcase in my Hollywoodpreneur personality quiz, because there is no one tailored visibility strategy. Like Jessica and I aren't going to be telling you like, you have to do it like this, and this, because everyone has different personalities. If you have more of a writer personality, you're not going to be attracted to the in-person interviews as much because it's a little bit more nerve-wracking. But for you to get like a featured column in Forbes or Huffington Post or Entrepreneur, that's going to be so much more your speed. So I don't want anyone to feel like, who's listening to this, that they should discount themselves because they're not this really shiny actor personality. And those ones tend to get seen pretty easily in the online space. So people look at that and go, well, I'm not that way. There's just no way I'm going to be successful. Absolutely utilize your strengths. Even if you're more of like a production designer personality and much more technical, there's absolutely so many ways you can make your brand shine. And a perfect example is Megan Minns, who is the executive virtual assistant for Mariah Cause, who's gone so forward with her branding, and she's using orange as her primary color. Even though she's very technically minded, she's done it in a way where she's been able to really grow over the past 2 years.
Yeah. And I mean, it really is like being able to pull that out of you, like what really is the thing that lights me up and excited, and then owning that, like, hey, it's okay that I am techie or nerdy or whatever, your thing is. And I know something that was tripping me up, and now, especially with Instagram stories, like there may be people that click through and they're like, is she ever serious? But then I realized like, I just love to joke and like have fun and like.
It's part of your personality.
Yeah, I just don't take things too seriously. And then when I started just owning that, like, hey, I know a lot of stuff about business, but on the other side, like, girls just want to have fun. Like, let's just like, enjoy this journey. And then I realized more people were attracting to me. And then when they came into the membership and things, it was such an easy conversation. And it's okay, I didn't have to be super refined. I don't have to be anything except whoever I am.
Absolutely. And I'm a little bit different. I'm not so much of like a shiny personality. I'm a bit more strategic, a bit more sharky, which there's nothing wrong with it. I have no problem getting on an interview like this one, but where I really shine, like on Insta stories, no one, unfortunately, really gives a crap about what's happening behind the scenes. And that's okay. For me personally, they want to see the strategies I'm implementing, what I'm creating. They want that knowledge. So here again, we have totally different audiences and our personalities are totally different, but we're in our zone of genius. And I think that is what is so key for anyone that is looking to grow their platforms organically.
Yes. And you even said like what your audience looks for. So really knowing what they do want from you. And I know a lot of times people will be posting on social or they send something to their list or they're doing these things and they go, well, that one didn't get a good response. Okay. So they're not as interested in that topic, which just says, okay, we're going to do less of that and more of this. Like, I think it's all this amazing learning experience. So
absolutely. You're figuring out what your targeting should be, but you're getting it for free. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's like you can't complain. And I always have like this running joke of like, I could put me and one of my friends and like, nobody really cares. Me and my husband, everybody wants it. I'm like, you're a big part of my business. Like you can't leave because like people obviously want to see you.
People are really more excited to see my pug than my husband, but yeah, I hear you.
Oh, if we had a dog, it would be like game on. Like that would be my whole feed. I'm like, sorry, if you don't like it, like we can't be friends.
Yeah, right? Then you just don't want to follow me.
Yeah. So let's talk about something that I know, like personally, I love in my business, and I assume you do too, because you're a fellow podcast host. So when it comes to guest blogging or pitching, I know that's something you help your clients with as well, like being seen by these other outlets, especially when people are saying, maybe I don't have money to invest in paid advertising. Sometimes we forget there's so much opportunity out there. It's just a matter of so few actually do it or so few do it right as well, So when it comes to getting people out there and getting known by certain media outlets, what are some things that maybe you take your people through to figure out what are their sweet spot topics?
Absolutely. Well, that's funny because me and my publicist, Kristen Marquet, are actually launching a group coaching program called Visible Press to deal with this exact issue, because a lot of people feel like it's impossible to get seen by the media and get in different, press, publicity, publications, and all of that. And I think, first of all, the biggest distinction to make is that you do not get into this realm to make additional income. You make it to become known as an authority and an influencer. So it's kind of different. Over here, you have your strategy where you're building up your offerings and you're doing ads or organic marketing to sell. And then over here, you're getting these opportunities for press and publicity so that you can be seen as more of an authority in your space. So I think that's the first thing. And you really need to have the social media and selling strategy in place before you do this. Because if you do get traffic from this and they have nowhere to go, you're going to be losing leads. But for us, I think it's definitely catering to, like we said, your personality type. And a lot of people feel like, okay, I need to be published in Forbes and interviewed on EO Fire and do this and do that and do that. And they feel really overwhelmed. So I think the first thing to do is figure out, where does your audience hang out in these publications? Are they reading Huffington Post? Are they watching certain interviews on YouTube? Are they listening mainly to podcasts? Because you know that your target market, that's who you need to be looking for on other people's shows, publications, books, whatever it may be. So really figuring it out and figuring out how can you do that and where are you going to look like the most attractive character. So like, for example, I'm interviewed pretty easily in publications, but if I can get on a podcast, I'm much more engaging. It's just naturally with my voice and the way I present myself, that's my zone of genius. So it takes some time to figure out. I definitely recommend getting your feet wet in every category, but then just really lasering in on where you're going to shine the most. So I think that would be the best beginning step. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree, because I think a lot of times we see this and we both have these personalities where we're not like, you must anything or you should. It's like, what's best for you? Like, you find your path and then you're going to shine because of that. Where we start to see this at the beginning, test different things. And I did guest blogging. Then I stopped doing that because I went, you know what? Like, I don't enjoy it as much. I got a few of my features, but hey, like, I just like a more live setting, and that's okay. So it works. Where other people are killing it guest blogging, like they find everything under the sun to write about and, share and then link it back to their site. And it works for them, where we start hearing these messages like blogs are dead and this is dead. Nothing's dead. If you focus on it and you double down, it's right for you. So, are your people one there where usually that's when it goes, well, how do I know? Ask them. Like, ask your people where they are. Like, find some of your ideal people, see what they're consuming, continue to, get a pulse on your audience. So every so often, usually about twice a year, I'll do like a market research survey to at least get a feel for where my people are or if things are shifting. But it's when you align that with what you're excited about too. So if my people say I'm in 4 different places, and let's say one is Twitter, I'll use that for an example, because I usually mention like Twitter is not my jam for me personally, and I just own that.
But it's weird because that's where my biggest following is, even though I feel like that's my jam, but that's where the biggest following is. So it's very strange. We're in a strange business.
Yeah, it's like you never know. And my thing is, if I feel heavy and forced into something, no, I'm going to pick the thing that, at least starting out, like I'm going to double down on the one resource that they're on, I enjoy, and then go ahead and up level from there and add another platform or add this versus let me try to do all of this at once and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think that a good way to get your feet wet for just the people that are listening and just not even sure where on earth to start is to go and start looking at resources like, I think it's medium.com, and that really goes through more of that blog mentality. If you're more of a technically minded writer, you may want to investigate that first. If you're more of a like director actor personality and you want to just get your voice out there, then start going into Facebook groups and look at people who are starting their own podcasts. When you first start out, you're just looking for guests. You don't really care how like notorious they are at all. You just want to be able to start building your authority. So start looking for those opportunities, see what your jam is. And sometimes people really enjoy being interviewed. Sometimes they hate that process and instead they want to start their own show or their own, talk show. So I think it depends on where you are. And I think this is a really interesting transition that we can make. In terms of the different social media platforms, where do you think people should focus depending on their zone of genius and why?
Oh, this is interesting. Okay.
It's a big one.
Yes. So if you are more of a like video, like you definitely want to do video. I mean, I know the logical thing would be YouTube, but for me, I still think there's so much power in Facebook right now that I would say like going on Facebook Live, and you could either repurpose it over there, or if you're doing more refined videos and you want to build a YouTube channel, that's a different beast in itself, so I would still be going there versus anywhere else. And then if you're on Instagram, link them over and let them know that you did that live. If you are writing, like you just love to put out content, I really think Medium is super untapped right now as far as things that are outside of your own blog. Like there are so many people out there, and if you just start, it's like any visibility strategy, then go interact with other people's blogs and then they start coming over and you develop a readership. I think there's so much potential still sitting there. If you are, what else do we need? I'm like, hold on. Audio, I am so pro that we are heading like podcasts are only the beginning.
Yeah,
like
I agree.
I think we are so like there's so much potential there, but you have to be willing to be consistent, show up, like be in it for the long haul. And I know you mentioned like some people love to be interviewed, others just want to start their own podcast. And I'll usually tell people, hey, like just make sure for you that go do some interviews first. Like, just make sure you really like it, because once you invest in all this equipment and this and that, and then you don't like it and you put out 5 episodes and then quit, like, just don't do that to yourself.
It's true. It takes a lot of tenacity to have a podcast. And there are some people that are more lighthearted. And so they have no problem just updating their RSS feed and they're done. Like for me, I'm very technical. I want everything I do to sustain leads forever. And so I'm like, okay, I'm making social media graphics for every single thing. And I'm embedding a, GIF into my emails, and I'm creating pin graphics to go to my website to listen to the show. So it really depends on your strategy. And I've seen people grow to 1 million listeners doing both, but I think it really depends on what is your long-term strategy. And are you going to be more dependent on your audience craving new episodes from you, or are you going to have situations in place so that new people can continuously find you based on the SEO of old episodes?
Yeah.
So I know that can sound really complicated if you're first getting started, and I don't want to scare you by any way, shape, or form, but I just want you to know that if, for example, doing like a podcast is going to be a lot more work than doing like a YouTube channel or doing a talk show on Facebook, just because there is a lot to consider on the way. And I think in the same vein, what I've been doing a lot of research on this year, and I don't know if you have as well, but looking at, okay, what does every channel do to serve my audience? Because a lot of people think like, oh, I'll just stick with Twitter, or oh, I'll just stick with Facebook, without understanding the differences. So I think we should highlight those really quick for our listeners so that they can understand. Do you want to kick it off, or do you want me to?
Go right ahead. I'll let you run with this one.
All right, kids. Well, what I think is interesting, a lot of people this year are primarily on Instagram, which is fantastic. And I think we have to look at why. So in terms of it being a social media platform, I don't know if I would even call it that, because people's feeds are more designed to be editorials, right? That's why the layout and the spread is, you're more attracted to the ones that are laid out beautifully and simple colors and all of that. But then they introduced Instagram stories so that you could get even closer with your audience. So you really need to look at Instagram as being your editorial magazine and also being your reality show. That's when people can see the behind the scenes of you doing what you're doing throughout the day. So I think that can be a little bit of a misconception, where people think that it's all about engagement on Instagram, which it can be, but it's also keeping the mindset of like, okay, Instagram is my magazine where I'm highlighting key things in my photos, and then it's my reality show where I'm showing them the behind the scenes of my day-to-day.
And I love that, because sometimes people don't realize when it is Instagram, they're like, oh, I need to put, all these different posts and everything. Like, everything on my feed is pretty strategic, like as far as why I'm doing that. And it's a consistent plan. Like for me, it's one time a day. For other people, it's a little bit different, but it is very like, okay, this is more that, this is just a day in the life that goes in my stories. Like that is the reality feed, where up here I'm paying more attention to what's going on that single post that I'm doing for that day.
Absolutely. So I think that can definitely be a great place to start. And then I think also when you start moving over into Facebook, especially with your group and your business page, this becomes more of a talk show environment. This is where you're really focusing on a live stream strategy. And sometimes you have guests on, sometimes it's just you, but people are wanting more of that entertainment via video. So that's what's very interesting, because a lot of people are being strategic in Facebook groups and putting in photo and text, and then they're getting frustrated because it's not having a ton of interaction. So I think this is definitely the place where you want to be getting on live and engaging with your audience.
Yes. And what would you say to the people that right now feel I don't have enough fill in the blank to go on live right now? Like they're just not feeling confident about it.
Yeah. Well, and this is why I run 4 times a year something called the Comfy on Camera Challenge, because this is one of the biggest holdups for entrepreneurs outside of everything else, is feeling comfortable going live. And I think it's because A, people don't feel qualified. B, they've usually dealt with people that have a bigger mission, always deal with more crap when they're young. And so there's usually a lot of bullying or family suppression or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of wounds that have to be broken past. And then it's usually because they do have a greater mission to reach people. And there's a lot of nerves that come with that possible exposure. No one walks into becoming an actress or, you know, an influencer with 100% confidence, right? You look at people's initial audition tape and you're like, wait, that's John Travolta? Like what?
Yes.
Right? So we definitely grow into becoming that kind of an influencer. So I think it's really important to practice in a safe environment, whether it's in my group or I'm sure your group. Make sure that you have people around you to support you, and be strategic. I think the best thing you can do is start getting used to having like bullet points at the side of your camera so that you can stay on task and remember what you're talking about. Because again, we're getting back to the personality types, knowing like, okay, if you're more of a compassionate, like you love people personality, you are always going to forget to promote yourself at the end and give people a call to action. So
Yes.
that's going to be your pain point. So it's just getting to know your personality on camera. I've had people that are relationship experts that really focus on connecting and compassion in their live streams that really takes off. I've had people who are wanting to get into fitness and be a fitness expert, and they really focus on stats and what they're going through in their health journey. So we're coming back to the theme of really figuring out what your zone of genius is and sticking to that and being brave enough to take that live where other people can watch to be able to share and learn themselves.
Yes, and I think there's two key things that I've always used when it comes to live video, or really just anything that makes me nervous, because I'm sure both of our audiences can agree when you are starting to step into that next level, you're sharing a story that is really close to your heart. Hitting that submit button or that post is really difficult because you're afraid of what people will think or say, or if they'll take it wrong. Like we've all experienced that. And I still experience it with certain posts I'm putting up. I'm like, okay, we're just going to do it. But when it comes to live video, now it's like this extra level because you feel exposed even more. Like I can't just hit post and run away. Like now I'm like in it in the moment.
You can't like delete and redo. It's like you're there. Like it's too late.
You're just like, never mind, end. Delete, bye. I left.
I've done that before. I've totally done that before. It's like, okay, no one's watching live. We're just going to delete this. Oh,
this never happened. And like, I think one thing that always still grounds me when it's a message that maybe it starts taking a different direction and like my passion starts to come on, you're like, maybe too much. No, just be in it, right? Like you're in this moment, is always remembering, like even before you push live or when you're in the thick of a conversation, is for me, it's always the one. So like, who is the one person that needs to hear this message? You may never know who they are, right? But there's somebody out there in your audience, and this could be if you have 23 people or 2,300 people, like it doesn't matter. But if you have this one person and they are positively impacted by what you share, they took one thing away and like went and applied it, and they are changed for the better, even if you don't know about it, if you can go up and serve them, you've done everything. So me thinking about one person versus looking at the number and seeing like people are on, right? Like instead of doing that, like it started to build that confidence. And then eventually it was just like, oh no, I'm used to it. But this allowed me that even the times when I went live and my cat decided to just run over and knock the phone over, like just like, I don't like you. Like, I'm like, you know what? My one person will have grace for that. They're like, that would probably be my life too. Like it's totally okay. And once we start to like lean into that, it does get like less uncomfortable. And then eventually it's just like, I don't care where I am. I'm putting live on because it's fun and I want to talk to you guys. And, you know, I was inspired by this thought.
Absolutely. And I think for me, what's been really instrumental, because I have a harder time, like now, of course I can, because I have a roster of clients to think about the one person. But before that, it was really nerve-wracking for me. And so what I focused on was my past self. Like, okay, a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, like, would this have changed my life if someone would have taken the time to tell me this? And I find that that can also really bring about an emotional connection on camera, because it's like that famous question, like if you could go back and change one thing in your life, what would it be? And we're like, oh, I wouldn't make this mistake. So there is very much an emotional tie to you from the past. So if it's hard for you to picture someone else on the other side of the camera, just talk to yourself like a video diary, like, don't do this, do this, because it's going to save you all this time. Because most of us are teaching on stuff we want our clients to do instead of what we did. So that can be another way to really increase that connection so that it's very like emotionally engaging when you go live.
Yes. And for you, I know you mentioned having Facebook groups. So are you using a free group, paid group? How is that looking in your business?
I'm using a free group. It's called The
Okay.
Visible Entrepreneur, and I am loving it. I do have, a paid mastermind, and they get their own private group, which I'm in much more
Mm-hmm.
focused. But I love having a free group. I love giving people the space to practice and get familiar. It's been so much fun for me, and I find that it's been also a great lead generator. How
Mm-hmm.
about you?
Yeah, so I used to have a free group and I
Mhm.
actually closed it down last summer. I
Mhm.
think it was in June because I had opened up this membership tier. And for
Mhm.
some reason, like I love the more intimate setting
Mhm.
and it just didn't feel in alignment anymore. And it was like, oh no, things have changed. So
Yeah.
for me, I am very big on this like burning your bridges, so to speak. So like once something really feels heavy for you, and
Mhm.
or it no longer fits in your business, it's okay, we can let that go. And if anything changes, we can come back to it, right? Like,
Absolutely.
if you want to do that. And I think that really goes with like the visibility piece, because I remember when I was first closing it, part of my fear was, oh my God, I'm losing one visibility avenue for my
Mhm.
people, right? So
Mhm.
I'm automatically taking something away. Do I hurry up and like fill it with something else? And I wound up not doing that and saying, okay, well, the time that I was using there, how can I better show up on the platforms I'm already on? Because you can always improve and get better with things. So let me
Mhm.
just do that, explore this, see where that goes. And sometimes it is that like ebb and flow in your business
Mhm.
of seeing at one time what works, what no longer works, and you're kind of like adding different things in depending on how it goes versus trying to again take on all the things.
Yeah, and that's what's so beautiful is that you can have different strategies. Like Jessica
Mhm.
and I's strategies aren't going to look exactly the same because we are in our lane, and that is what is so exciting. And things are going to change as you grow. Certain platforms are going to stop, other ones are going to open up, and that's what's so exciting about the industry that we're in.
Yes. So I have to ask you, what is your favorite way to get visible currently?
Oh, that's a hard one. I'm really excited about season 2 of the podcast, which we're on
Mhm.
right now. This is the
Hi,
first
season
time.
two.
Hi, season 2. This is the first time I'm like bringing on a team and not doing every single thing myself. And so that's exciting because I feel like I'm really able to focus on the bigger aspects of podcasting. So I'm really excited about that. And I think I'm excited to show people how they can really increase their visibility without being dependent on certain platforms and or like leveraging themselves through their press kit and different things that we're starting to learn about in entrepreneurship but that are so familiar to me from my Hollywood background, like showing people how to make their brand videos and their press kits in a very strategic way that I learned from that. So that
Mhm.
feels really good for me because I don't feel like I'm having to be in any confinement based on what other people are doing. I'm able to invent this myself, and that feels really good for me.
Yes. And here's even like the thing about that is you can just stay in your lane, own it, and really see that continue to develop. And I know team building is something we're actually working on this year too. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's this very interesting dynamic, right?
Oh, it's so
Because
stressful.
you're like, yeah, I'm like, I used interesting, but you're totally right.
Yep.
Because
Oh.
you're making sure you have like the right people in the right spots. And
And the
then,
right tutorials and the right project management systems.
yes, everything. And you're like,
Mhm.
I just wanted to show up and talk about things,
I
right? But
know.
this allows you to do that, right? It's
Yeah.
just a matter of that, like, in between time of setting
Mhm.
everything up. And we wound up launching, I have a second podcast as well with one of my friends.
Woohoo.
And so we have like the Daydream Achievers Aligned CEO. So that's more
Uh-huh.
mindset and business strategy, like jamming back and forth.
Beautiful.
And as we did that, it was, okay, like, let's make sure, and I know you love systems too, it's like laying all this out. And then as a team comes in, you're like, oh wait, this only makes sense to me. Okay, so here's like more tutorials, more things like that. So
When you
it's
realize how
really,
much you do, like, I
yes.
don't know about you, but it was like having to actually outline every single process that I have to do to get this podcast out. I brought my project manager over and he looked at it and he's like, this is way too much for any human being. And I'm like, well, I'm just used to doing it. And he's like, no, you're not touching any of this anymore. Like, you don't realize
Mm-hmm.
how much you've been doing. And like, even if you're just starting out, I know it probably feels like you are drowning and there's so much going on. And I think if anything, take away to just simplify things a little bit, just stick with one visibility strategy for the next quarter, see how you can sustainably grow, because there will be a point where you will grow enough to be able to bring on a team to support you so that you can focus on the platforms you love the most.
Yes. And I'm so glad you said quarterly, because I always do this 90-day evaluation. I tell people to do that as well with their visibility plans is, okay, look at what you've been doing. What pieces are working for you? Okay, we take those with us, but like really be honest, the things that aren't, is it because one, I wasn't consistent or I didn't commit to it? Because we can't say that's the problem then, right?
Right.
But if you have been showing up and doing it, but it's not getting traction or engagement or sales or whatever you're, judging the KPI for, but if that's not working, okay, we need to let that go, not stack more things on top of it. Cause then this makes it, you don't increase the work hours, you just switch out the different activities that you're doing. And then it allows you to continue to grow.
Absolutely. You have to do it sustainably. And I looked today and went, you know what? People have been saying like, why aren't you blogging? Why aren't you blogging? I'm like, I hate blogging. I don't want to blog. Like, and I realized the podcast is enough. Each podcast has its own private website page. Like, why am I doing that to torture myself? Yes. Am I a good writer? Sure. I'm going to put that energy into a book, not a blog, because I hate blogging. It is okay to hate live streaming, to hate posting on social media. That's good. Like, whatever repulses you the most, then there is something else out there that you should be focusing on.
Yes. And I've had this conversation with people like, I have to live stream. I'm like, why? And they're like, because they said like, but they can't, like, they want to literally throw, not just from nerves, they hate it. I said, so be a blogger. Like, be whatever, whatever it is, like, find that thing. Like, don't force yourself to hate something in business. Instead, like, that's going to reflect in everything you do. So, even when you mentioned about blogging, I did, like, things I learned in 2017. And for some reason, I felt like writing it out. So I did. And then one of my friends was like, are you going to start blogging again? I was like, no, that was the one of the year. Like, I'm done. I put on the list. So it's all podcast episodes, one blog podcast episodes.
I love it.
I'm like, no, it's definitely not something I'm doubling down on, but felt inspired, figured why not write some things.
You have the freedom to do that, and then you can run away from it. I think that's great.
Yes. So as we wrap this up, I love to ask 3 questions at the end, just to, have a little achiever session here. So the first thing would be, up until this point, what would you say is the thing you're the most proud of achieving?
That's so hard. I think for like the inner geek in me, this year I got featured on EO Fire, and that was such a full circle moment for me, because that's the podcast I started listening to when I quit my job. So that was very like full circle, not for like, all the listeners or anything like that, but just to be able to be in that hot seat and have that moment was just very fulfilling. So in terms of visibility that I worked hard for the past year, that definitely stands out.
Yes. And let's talk about either books that you're reading or currently, listening to that you are absolutely crushing on right now.
Oh my goodness, I'm so in love. Russell Brunson, he has my heart in so many ways. And so I am going back through everything, and I'm reading .com Secrets, Expert Secrets, and just really building that attractive character and having a blast doing it.
Yes. And I love that you go back to. It's like, because you're going to be in different phases in your business. And then all of a sudden you're like, that wasn't on that page. Like, you just learned something new.
Absolutely.
Yes. And the final question here is, if you could go back to your very first day in business, what advice would you give yourself based on what you know now?
Well, I mean, the first thing would be, don't build your course with WordPress, because that cost me so
I did that too. It like never worked.
No, so painful. No beginner should have to go through that. I would say that the most important thing you can do to actually establish and grow your business, if I could go back and tell myself, is my morning routine. Every day I go to the coffee shop and I have my spiritual study, my business study, and just some spare sheets of paper to write notes on. It's so important to clear out your mind, to get everything you have to do out on a piece of paper so that then you can really listen and create and really give the impact you want to give. So I wish I would have done that much, much earlier.
Yes. Oh, I love that. This has been so awesome being able to do this.
How she is trying to escape this conversation without
I'm like,
me
okay, so
asking
we're
some
done.
ending
We're
questions.
done. Bye.
I have questions for you.
Yes.
My number one question is, if you could reach through the phone or the computer right now and give someone one piece of encouragement for them to increase their visibility this quarter, what would it be?
Your story matters. There's somebody out there who needs exactly what you have, and it's probably the most imperfect part of you. And if you are willing to release that to the world, you will seriously change the lives that you started this business to change.
That was good. That was really good. Okay. Next question would be, what is something you do every day that you know positively contributes to your success?
Workout. I need to sweat.
What kind of workout?
So typically we're about to go into running season, so it will be a lot of running. But I'm about to restart CrossFit. And I just love to challenge myself. Like, I love to start the day like I'm on top of the world. So that helps me to do it.
Beautiful. And then favorite movie and why?
Oh, all right.
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, the pressure. Okay. I'm going to think of one.
Feel it.
I'm going to have
Sweat.
one. Okay. Like, everything I think of as a favorite movie, like, I'm totally going to get judged on, but all my favorite movies are totally cheesy. So like, I'm totally throwing out Mean Girls there because it just totally lets me unplug and just like watch it. You're just like, this is ridiculous. Why am I watching this at 33? I don't care. So I'm putting it there.
Hey, you're talking to the girl who just rented Pitch Perfect 3 and had a great time. So
see?
I get it.
You do what you got to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love it. I've loved being able to chat with you. This has been so fun doing this crossover episode.
Yes, absolutely. So if you want to find me, I'm over at thedaydreamachiever.com. Podcast-wise, because you're obviously listening, head over to #DaydreamAchievers. You can go ahead and subscribe. And Michelle, definitely let us know where we can find you.
Absolutely. Well, I recommend everyone to take the Hollywoodpreneur quiz. That's going to help you the most figuring out your different visibility strategies. And you can find that at visibilityvixen.com/take the quiz. And if you're one of Jessica's listeners and you also want to subscribe to my podcast, I would love to have you go to The Visible Entrepreneur on whatever platform you're at, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, whatever. It's everywhere. And I would love for you to listen.
Yes, and of course we'll both link it all up in the show notes because we can't help ourselves, and that's what we do. And thank you so much, you guys, for listening. We super love you guys, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
If you're wondering how on earth does Michelle stay organized, have her website in place, and build out her funnels, I want to introduce you to the software that I could not live without, and it's called ClickFunnels. You may have heard of it in the online space, but it's something I am very passionate about because for me, I need a lot of flexibility in my business. I need to know where people are going, and for me, linking up lead pages and Teachable and Squarespace and using a hosting site and Samcart was just too many tools. I needed one thing where I could log in and build my site, my sales pages, take payments, my affiliate centers, and manage my membership and courses. And that has been ClickFunnels. So if you're interested in getting a 2-week free trial, please join with the link below, or you can go to bit.ly/Michelle ClickFunnels. And no, you don't just buy it and never hear from me again. You can email me at hello@visibilityvixens.com and I will grant you access to the private group, which gives you detailed instructions of how to build your ClickFunnels account, as well as ask me any questions you have along the way. So I will see you on the inside. Feel free to join at bit.ly/Michelle ClickFunnels. I hope you loved this episode as much as I did. Now, we're all about building a tribe here at The Visible Entrepreneur, so be sure to subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and then head on over to the Facebook group. It's a great place where you can practice your video, live stream, and really enjoy the community that we have built. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next episode. Now get out there and get more visible.
That's a wrap.